We're here. The two most foremost experts on cars. I drive a station wagon and
Honda Civic.
which is
automatic.
Hey, a lot of souped up Honda Civics out there.
That is true. And I don't know if you can tell by my incredibly masculine appearance. I know nothing about cars.
You know that they drive.
I do, and I take one to work, and that's about it.
That's the only requirements needed to talk about car movies.
Yes. I like movies, and I like cars. I like, whatever. Moving on. I don't know what I'm saying.
He actually hates cars.
Yeah, I hate them.
Anyways, we're here to talk about 10 great car movies. I'm not going to say it's the top 10 because I just picked these out of a hat.
Yeah, and there's, like, I have not seen Bullet. I know that's like one of the go-to ones.
Or The Driver. I've not seen The Driver.
The Driver.
Which is, it was before Drive ever came out.
I know the video game.
But, there's a lot of movies from the 70s that were just like, these are amazing car movies. Mm-hmm. And when we say car movies, we're not talking specifically about racing.
Right, which was my question.
Yes. Fast and Furious is not on this list because it transcends its own thing. And to put it on the list would be.
And I think everyone would agree, it's not a car movie anymore.
No.
It was.
The first three for sure are car movies. Let's kick off this list with Locke, starring Tom Hardy. All takes place inside of a car. It's about a construction manager. So on the surface, sounds boring, but he's dealing with infidelity. He's got to come up with an excuse not to make his kids game. He's trying to handle some stuff at work while he's driving. It is perhaps one of the best acted movies I've ever seen.
Man.
And we have put Bronson on the list, on one of our lists. So
I do love Bronson. Tom Hardy's very good at his job. I have not seen Locke. Yeah. I really want to.
I think when you hear it, you're like, oh, it's just him in a car. And for some people, they're like, oh, that sounds boring. But that's why I turned it on. I was like, let's see if it actually is boring. And it's not. It's amazing. There's no car crashes. It's all just emotional car crashes.
I thought it was an action movie. Is it not?
No.
Oh my God.
It is just them shooting around him in a car.
Huh.
And so he doesn't get out of it. I mean, he jumps into the car at the very beginning and gets out at the end. But it's all just based around a car.
Dig it. It's like Phone Booth, but car.
Yeah. And then obviously, this is not on the list, but Drive My Car has a similar thing, but they get out of the car more often. Next, I think everyone will agree this is one of the greatest car movies to ever exist. I'm talking about the road trip movie, Thelma and Louise.
Oh, of course. One of Ridley Scott's best, which is saying a lot, because that man's amazing. Did it win Best Picture? I don't know.
No, but I know it got nominated for a lot.
Got nominated for a lot. It was obviously I was not alive, but it was a very big deal. I know about it because it's referenced 1,000 times. The ending, one of like the most iconic ending scenes ever in the car.
Yeah.
And it's, as you said, it's a road trip movie, and it's not a typical one.
No, it's not. It kind of put road trip movies on its head because throughout the 70s and early 80s,
everywhere
it was just like, it's got to be high octane violence all the time, crazy stuff happening. And theirs was just like, what if we just had like fun and there was a little bit of consequences?
Yeah. A little sprinkling.
Burt Reynolds as Gator McCluskey in White Lightning as a moonshiner running from the law. I'm sure parts of it hasn't aged well. I have not watched it for a long time. My dad showed it to me as a kid, and I was like, man, this movie's crazy. And he showed it to us right as we were about to move to Arkansas.
Nice.
Because he's from Arkansas.
It's like, we gotta get used to it. Here's how they act. They drive fast. They don't.
Yeah, they don't. It's nothing like Arkansas. No. But anyways, Archer, if you've watched the FX animated show Archer, his character really loves Gator McCluskey, and he thinks the sequel is better than the original. But it's actually a good movie. I don't know about the sequel. I never watched it.
I didn't know there was one till now.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that Smoking the Bandit is not on this list because White Lightning is on this. Okay.
I made an editorial decision.
That's a good. You had to make sure. Comments, whoever says that, because Smoking the Bandit is a good one, but
it's a good one too. Yes.
Burt Reynolds can only be in one.
I feel like Smoking the Bandit had better acting. This has better action.
and more car.
And
I guess.
Lots of more car. This one is another iconic one, is Blues Brothers.
Oh man, I mean, right. I don't know if you can see it in the frame.
You can't see it.
Oh, you can. Yeah, you can kind of see it.
Zoom in sideways.
Kablamo. Just like Thelma Louise. It's iconic. No movie will ever like be it.
I know they spent a lot of money back in the day for the car crash scene.
And they got their money's worth because man, they crashed like 500 cop cars in this movie.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's it's timeless.
Yeah,
forever.
And many movies have tried to replicate what made it so great. And as maybe showing it now to a kid, they probably won't understand the humor because it's sort of like so baked into our culture.
It is.
That it's like, it doesn't feel humorous anymore. But when you watch it at a certain period in your life, you're like, holy crap, this is a movie.
On top of the pacing is like, this movie's long.
Yeah.
And I watched it somewhat recently and I was like, man, they don't make movies like this anymore. Like it takes its time.
Yeah. They stay in first.
Yeah.
That's a car reference. Let's stay in the 70s. I want to talk about Car Wash, which is another one of these like comedies that basically changed comedy. The 70s film and early 80s film was all about changing comedy and how it worked. And I mean, technically, all of the 70s was about changing how American film was made.
Right. Yeah,
but comedy especially. Car Wash, it is just like cameos galore. You got Richard Pryor, George Carlin, the Pointer Sisters, Garrett Morris, Bill Duke, Antonio Fargas. I mean, you have everyone that in the 80s and 90s were just like in every comedy movie. But this is obviously like an episodic type of thing. People come to the car wash. They're a crazy character. They get their car wash, and it's just the workers dealing with it. Huh. It's sort of like a Linklater movie. His like early movies, like Slacker, where you're just following these characters and weird stuff's happening.
Slice of life.
Yeah.
Type thing.
And then every comedy tried to emulate that in some way. So, and now let's go back. Let's get into Overdrive. Whoa! Back to present day. Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh man, it's one of the best action movies ever, possibly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So many cool cars. It's just amazing. They blow up real cars, just like they did in the 70s. George Miller just continues his quest of blowing up everything in Australia. Yeah. I respect him for
succeeds.
it. He does.
And what's crazy about Mad Max Fury Road, it's just like the perfect combination of practical CGI. Like they shot just out into the desert, and watching this movie, you would never know that.
Nope. It just looks good. Yeah. But also weird, which is, Mad Max. Like it's good and weird.
Yeah. And you sideline your main character to focus on other characters. Only George Miller can do something like that.
And they're making a sequel or prequel. Prequel, right?
It's a something.
Whatever.
It's a something cool.
Yeah, some cool. Looking forward to it. Hopefully, they blow up more cars.
Now we got to talk about Steven Soderbergh and Logan Lucky. This is probably our wild horse pick here.
Yeah, it's. You told me to give you 3, and I gave you this one. I'm like, yeah, why not? I love this movie so much. Yeah. It's so cute. And I think it was the first movie whenever he retired, and he came back and just made this, like, I think he called it Kentucky Fried Oceans or something like that.
Yeah.
It takes place, like, it's a heist movie around NASCAR, and it's kind of car related. Like, this one's kind of pulling kind of stretching it a little bit, but it's such a good movie. It's honestly, like, so sweet and hilarious. Daniel Craig in this movie is just it was before Knives Out.
Yeah, so his southern accent is actually different in this one than the one in Knives Out.
It is. It's more drunk.
Yeah.
This is like a drunk southern accent.
But you get Adam Driver.
That's right. He's in this. Oh my God.
And Channing Tatum.
Yep.
Which is just an oddball pairing.
It is.
Because you think, when you think of Adam Driver, you think, indie movie, indie comedy, and Channing Tatum, you think just like blockbuster star.
Right.
And they both just do this movie. All right, next we have Talladega Nights, The Legend of Ricky Bobby, one of Christopher Nolan's favorite movies.
Man's got taste. Let me tell you.
As everyone on the internet is realizing right now, Will Ferrell in the early 2000s just made banger after banger.
It's incredible to think about it. Like, I remember I was a kid at the time, so I was the market for his movies, and I loved them very much. And you look back now, I'm like, that guy dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And this is arguably his best one. It's like this and Anchorman or Step Brothers or Elf or
You're just naming all of them.
Yeah, all of them are great.
It definitely has the best story out of all of them, I would say.
Yes, and budget, I think.
It probably has the biggest budget too. I mean, and you get Sacha Baron Cohen either the same year or the year before Borat
It was the same year, 2006.
So, and he looks so different from Borat in this that you don't even realize it's the same dude until you look it up, like Google it later.
Yep. I remember when that came out, I was like, wait, hold up, he looks kind of familiar, and I looked it up, and it's so funny, and it's another NASCAR movie. I believe it or not, I grew up a NASCAR fan. I was a little child.
You love driving around in circles.
I did, with beer everywhere. There was my favorite story is I was at Texas Motor Speedway. I was 10 years old, and this drunk guy who was smoking cigarettes, which you could do at the time at the racing track, he goes, "You smell that? That's the smell of freedom."
Oh no!
That guy. And anyways, that movie is
to get that as a 10-year-old. That's quite the experience.
Quite the experience. But that movie was made for that guy. I'm sure he loves this movie. But also, if you just like movies in general, this movie's great.
Yep. It's great. It probably has the best improv of any improv-laden movie.
Especially Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
Improv-ish.
All the commercials that they do are just the best. Now to go to a completely opposite style of movie. It's your dad's favorite movie that came out in the last few years, Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh man. Another just racing movie. Mm-hmm. It's so good. I remember seeing this movie in the theater, blown away by how good the sound design in this is. And also it's just if you tell any story well, it's a good movie. And this is one of those examples, you hear it and you're like, who cares? It's Ferrari and Ford against each other in the 70s. Okay, but man.
And I mean, Christian Bale,
amazing. Matt Damon being Matt Damon with a southern accent again.
Matt Damon in the last few years has just taken on this role of just I'm going to play not the lead, but I'm going to play the next person. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make sure the lead looks great in this movie. And
he's very good at that job. He's fantastic.
It works. It's going to continue to work until he decides not to act anymore.
Yep.
This is not the end of the list because it's got a surprise 11th movie for us.
Oh my God.
But American Graffiti, George Lucas directed right before he blew up with Star Wars. Mm-hmm. The introduction of Harrison Ford as a movie star. If he didn't have this role, he wouldn't really have Star Wars. Nope. Ron Howard in probably his last main acting role.
I think you're right. Before he transitioned to behind the camera. And
it's a look at the 50s and early 60s, that sort of culture when you drive your car out to the fast food place or you go out to the car hop or whatever. I don't know what the words they used back then.
That sounds right. I believe that.
But you took your car and you went somewhere and you partied with people and you drove your car back, and you may or may not have been drunk. You may or may not have done some drag racing
and not wear your seatbelt.
And people may have died and you just sort of just lived your life afterwards. Yeah. And it's a very cautionary tale type of movie. A lot of, if you love Dazed and Confused, there's a lot of inspiration drawn from American Graffiti.
Definitely. This was a revolutionary movie at the time. Then he made Star Wars and did it again. But it's so it's a slice of life, and it's also a time capsule because it's not only the 50s, but it's what the nostalgia of the 50s from the 70s, which is kind of what Grease did, but this is way better. Where's our American Graffiti? We're
gonna get it. We're in the nostalgia of the 90s.
Right. Oh yeah. So it's getting
2000s.
there.
So we're gonna get a end of the 20th century type of movie that is in the same vein as Dazed and Confused and American Graffiti.
Looking forward to it.
We're getting it. I hope. I don't know if we actually will. The final 11th secret mystery movie. Gone in 60 Seconds, not the original, the remake.
The Nick Cage.
Angelina Jolie. And then, of course, you got Delroy Lindo, and then you have a couple of other people in it. But it's just a schlocky type of movie where it's just so stupid and so bad, but you can't help be like, I love this movie.
Mm-hmm. It's also incredibly over-edited. Yeah. And it's peak early 2000s cinema. It was to early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
It's 2000-ish. God, there's another time capsule where it's just, if you want to see what cinema was in the early 2000s, this is a good like stepping point.
Yes. And it's probably the first instance for me anyways to realize that Nick Cage was a different type of actor. Because I had seen him before in, like City of Angels and a bunch of other 90s movies. And then he did like Bringing Out the Dead. And then he's just like, you know what? I'm going to do the Nick Cage approach. And in the early 2000s, he does National Treasure after this, and then he just goes off the walls.
Goes nuts. And they also go severely into debt and made it even better.
Well,
but
that happens. That's just a small slice of the American car movies, and there's European car movies that are entirely different style. I mean,
Italian Job. That's my go-to one.
Italian Job, yeah. Both the original and the remake are good for different reasons.
Yes, they are.
So go out there, get into fifth gear?
Seventh, eighth,
there is no seventh gear. I know that for sure.
Drive your car.
Don't go in reverse. Take the parking brake off and zoom out of here.
And then leave it in neutral. Keep it neutral.
Keep it in neutral. Don't go down the hill.
Yeah, there we go.